as all four series are underway in the Manitoba Junior Hockey League playoffs, we thought it would be a good time to catch up and get the insight from some of the MJHL experts around the league. We're joined with Kevin Pauls of the Niverville Nighthawks, Cody Bueller of the Portage Terriers, and Darnell Duff of the Dauphin Kings. I'm Dave Anthony with the Steinbach Pistons, and let's start with that series, Cody. 2-1 in favor of the Terriers. We kind of talked about it before game three. Whichever team could play a full 60 minutes was probably going to grab an advantage, and the Terriers did that in game three. Talk about what made them so successful to grab a 2-1 series lead.
Yeah, game three was a much better all around effort from start to finish. And I think in the first two games, I don't think either team would be happy with their full effort. There was definitely flashes in games 1 and 2 where both teams came to play. Steinbach really dominating the second periods of those games. Portage looking good kind of early on, and then it kind of went back and forth. And then in that final game, in game number 3, the one we just saw, the Terriers did a really good job of using their defense, breakout passes, not allowing Steinbach a lot of time to set up. And then when there were so many penalties and special teams was such a factor, it never really gave the Pistons an opportunity to get anything going offensively.
8 power plays for the Portage Terriers in game three, just the one for the Steinbach Pistons. But that was an effort thing because Portage ended up initiating a lot of contact and forcing those power plays. And so it really put Steinbach on their heels. And you can't spend 24 minutes in the penalty box between 4-on-4 and shorthanded. You can't have 4 guys on the ice for 24 minutes against the Portage Terriers. Kevin Pauls, you've seen the Pistons this year. They've always been able to bounce back. Not going to be easy against the Terriers, but if they are going to be successful at Stride Place, what do they need to do?
Well, they get obviously production from guys like Connor Perenuzzi. It's going to be paramount that the rest of the lineup steps in too, and that their defense holds the line because it is a long, hard battle. Portage brings a physicality, and we know that they have good goaltending. So it boils down to support up and down the lineup, and through the course of a game too. Battling into the late stages of the third period and capitalizing on your opportunities when given.
Darnell, it's been an excellent coaching matchup between Blake Spiller and Paul Dick. I think everybody around the league would have thought that it would be exactly what it's been. Blake made his adjustments through games 2 and game 3, and they've got him a couple of wins. It's up to Paul Dick now to make some adjustments or find a way to get some guys going. Just take us through from a distance what it's been like to watch these two master coaches kind of go head to head.
Yeah, like I said when we had our preview show, I expected this to be a 6 or 7 game series, and I think that is still going to be the case. I think where Portage has taken over in this series is between the pipes. I thought coming in, we talked a lot about maybe Ryan Vellon was going to get an opportunity, but Mitchell Caitler, the 18-year-old rookie of the year, he's been absolutely fantastic in this series, and he's outplaying the play of Christian Green, who has an .892 save percentage compared to Caitler's .943 save percentage. So when your goaltender is outplaying the other goalie, it's going to be tough to lose a series, and that's certainly what Mitchell Caitler has done. And I expect now Christian Green has been through last year in the AJHL. He's been through a playoff series. I expect him to step up if the Pistons want to have success moving forward.
2 things for me, and Cody, we'll wrap up with you kind of sharing your thoughts on them as well. Caitler's been fantastic, but it's been the timeliness of his saves. He's made breakaway saves in the first couple minutes of games 2 and 3. He made that incredible glove save when his team was up 1-0, second period of game 3. So it's not the amount of saves, which he's also done, but the timeliness of it. And I think the depth of Steinbach needs to come up here because Portage has moved guys around. They've got, Gravener now on a different line that helped them level things out a little bit. You look at Belzil picking up a goal, Dawson Madden picking up a goal. Steinbach now needs to kind of get that depth going a little bit. Those are the 2 big things that stand out for me. What about you, Cody?
Yeah, no, I would definitely agree. It seemed like Steinbach, especially in the last game, was rolling 3 lines with Braden Berg going down with injury. That really kind of changed things up and forced the Pistons putting in a 7th defenseman. We didn't see a lot of shifts from Bogart. So really, they were playing with 3 D pairs and then 3 lines and then a couple of extra. And they were killing a lot of penalties. So those guys did get some minutes. But it's going to be interesting to see how they balance their lines in the next game. And like you said, the timeliness of the saves, that breakaway save he had on Perenuzzi, and then that glove save that he had in the second period of game 3, those really could be, those were game-stealing saves in both situations, I think, and obviously able to hang on. And the nice thing, I think, from a Terriers perspective is just the fact that the Pistons didn't have as many shots in game number 3 as they did in 1 and 2, really lopsided in the shot department. And so I think that's something that the Terriers need to keep focusing on and keep going into the back half of the series.
I will say again, though, it's only one game, 2-1. I think both teams agree it's not end of the world just yet. And yeah, it's hard to get a lot of shots when you only have 4 guys on the ice. Again, you just cannot spend 24 minutes shorthanded in a hockey game against the Terriers at any time, let alone the playoffs. Let's transition series-wise here. Kevin Paul's one that I think everybody is focused in on for one reason or another. Niverville versus Winkler. One of the biggest wins in franchise history in game number 2. But even games 1 and 3 that have been losses have been really tightly contested. Take us through your overview of the series and what's made the Nighthawks so pesky for the Flyers to deal with.
Well, game 1 was an interesting one because it looked like the Flyers were just basically collecting in the neutral zone and re-engaging and forcing the Nighthawks, into their own end and making it very difficult to move the puck up ice. Shots were very lopsided. Obviously, Austin Dubinsky played amazing hockey for the Nighthawks, which they're going to need carrying on through this series. And a 1-0 win for the Flyers, I think, was a bigger bonus for the Nighthawks going into game 2, where they really changed the whole scope of the series, proving that they can put up. I think that's the first time the Flyers have allowed 6 goals since November. So for the Nighthawks to score 6 goals in their home rink and absolutely blow the roof off the CRRC was one of the coolest hockey experiences I've been a part of. And being on both sides of the puck, and seeing where the Flyers have come from, it was a bit of a surprise, but the Nighthawks did such a good job controlling their emotions strategically. They effectively executed all their game plan to the finest degree. Flyers had a hard time matching their speed, and as the game went on, the Nighthawks just kept putting their foot on the gas. Going into game 3, it really surprised me too. That play from Sunday night's game carried through. The Nighthawks answered back when the Flyers scored, tying the game up a couple times. The only time they got really into trouble was a couple penalties. The Flyers capitalized on their power plays. The Nighthawks didn't. There was a couple times where, Nighthawks had a 5-on-3 end of the second period. And I think that was really a turning point in the game. Had they have scored, that could have easily been a 2-1 series in favor of the Nighthawks going back to Niverville tonight. But ultimately, it's amazing how close that series really is. It's admirable how hard the Nighthawks are playing. And both teams need to focus on staying out of the penalty box in order to get some success moving forward.
Darnell, from a distance, I know it's kind of hard to get a feel for this series. I'm sure you got an eye on some of the goals, you've got an eye on some of the numbers and all that, but are you just getting a sense or a feeling that the Flyers are just kind of sputtering right now, or are you getting a sense that the Nighthawks are playing near perfect playoff hockey and are a legitimate threat? Do you think it's something that it's kind of meeting in the middle? What are your thoughts from a distance?
Yeah, I think you could look at both sides of the coin. I think it's a Winkler Flyers team that, as I mentioned in the preview show, it has a lot of pressure. They have a stop sign on their back. They're the top team in the MJHL, but with that comes great pressure. And then I think for the Niverville Nighthawks, Austin Dubinsky, as mentioned, has been fantastic. 37 saves in game 1, 33 in game 2, and then another 31 in game number 3. And then you have 13 guys who have at least a point. Holden Getzlaff on the back end, and as well as Luke Wagner has 3. And then Hayden Wedden, who has been through the grind of a playoff journey. Now, he hasn't played a long playoff journey, the most with the Brandon Wheat Kings last year in the Western Hockey League, 4 games, but he's having a really good series. And Adam Vigvason hasn't even really fired it up in this series yet. So I think this is a Niverville team that they bump, they bruise, they play brute hockey. And I think Winkler is almost sort of crumbling under that pressure. With that being said, they're only 2 games away from advancing to round 2. But this has been certainly a fun one to watch and a thrilling one for fans.
Yeah, Cody Bueller, with the Portage Terriers, you've seen this story from both sides. You've been the heavy favorite in a playoff series and been pushed by the underdog. And you've also been that scrappy team that's found a way to just be a thorn in the side of some teams that maybe do have more skill than that particular club. So just from your point of view, what does this do just mentally for each team? Let's say Winkler does manage to get out of this series. They're not coming through unscathed. They're nicked up. Like, this is going to mentally, play with them. And if you're the the Nighthawks, you believe you can win game 4. You believe you can win in Icon Arena. You've only lost by a goal twice. Just take us through your thoughts of the mentality of both these clubs going forward, regardless of where the series outcome goes.
Well, I know right now they're both thinking that they've got a shot. I know Winkler, I'm sure, is confident right now. They are up 2-1. They've won at home. Now they know that they can take care of business at home, but they would like to get it done earlier and go get a win on the road. And for the Niverville Nighthawks, they've won at home. They've got to do it again. It's always tougher being down in a series, but we talked about it in the preview shows before this series began. Niverville's a good team, and I said that they're going to give Winkler a run for their money, and we saw that already. I know Winkler's missing Jensen right now, who's out with suspension. And that's one of those things that Winkler might be thinking, well, if this playoffs goes long enough, then we've got some reinforcements potentially coming down the road. But right now, they've still got to get there. And so they've got to try and get these wins and get as many games in as they can before Jensen will ultimately come back. But I think we'll see how it goes in Niverville tonight, I guess, for game number 4. I always think game 4 is one of the most crucial games in a series, and that's definitely going to be the case tonight.
Yeah, Niverville having to defend home ice. If Winkler can go in and kind of steal one, so to speak, on the road, it really gives them the hammer. Henry Smith being out too for Niverville. Hopefully he's back for tonight, as he was a big piece on that back end acquired at the trade deadline. Kevin Pauls, we'll just focus in with you here to wrap this up. We talked about Austin Dubinsky, and I haven't really named a single Flyer yet who has stepped up to put this team on their back. So you get a sense that maybe that is coming. But overall, just your thoughts here heading into what could be, like Cody said, a crucial game number 4.
It's massive tonight. The Flyers need to get back to playing their hockey and, like we said, stay out of penalty trouble, because there's been a lot of after the whistle stuff, which is something that contributes to the overall flow of a game. But you started to see it, like guys like Jace Lee Garden, Brody Boscheman, Brady Craik are the leaders, and we saw Craik score the game winner back on Tuesday night. So I fully expect him to be a major piece of this puzzle for the Winkler Flyers. And they've been physical. They've been really tough on guys like Adam Vigfusson, who carry the majority of the weight offensively for the Niverville Nighthawks. And he was close a few times, a couple chances on the man advantage, but really that's where other guys like Luke McKenzie, you talked about, Holden Getzlaff scored his first goal of his Manitoba Junior Hockey League career. There's been a number of other players that have contributed as well, and that needs to carry forward for the Nighthawks. Adam Vigfusson, obviously a big piece, but the Dawson Zellers, Hayden Weddens, and the like also need to carry the torch here for the Nighthawks in order for them to have success. And tonight at home, that place will be rocking, so I expect everybody to come out guns blazing.
Maybe we should give the Flyers a little bit more credit for being mentally tough. You win game 1-0 late in the third. You get trounced in game 2, but you bounce right back in game number 3. And it doesn't matter how much you win by, it's just the fact that you win. And that really shows a good, mature approach by the Winkler Flyers club. That, again, it's not easy to win this time of year. Just because you're ranked number 1 playing the number 4 team, it's not supposed to be easy. Speaking of that, the Dauphin Kings are making it look pretty easy at times, as Darnell Duff, voice of the Dauphin Kings, your club up 3-0 after the first 3 games of this series. Of course, game 3, an overtime win at Credit Union Place. The Wolverines have been pesky, but do you get a sense that Dauphin fully healthy is just too much for the Wolverines to handle, having played such stressful hockey for 5-6 weeks already?
Yeah, simply put, and I mean the only reason that this series is as close as perhaps it has been in games is the play of Mariko Bercier. He's been absolutely fantastic. He had 53 saves in game number 3, was the performer of the night, but it just wasn't enough. This is a Wolverines team that has not scored in the first period in this series, that has not scored in the third period in this series. Dauphin has certainly taken things away in the third, outscoring them 5-0. And the play of Gavin Nemes, the 18-year-old who missed the final few games of the regular season, has a 3-pack already of game-winning goals. It's a Kings team that is still without one of their top forwards in Madden Murray. He's day-to-day, but just playing very solid on the back end and transitioning that to clutch offense at big moments. Of course, you have Cole Sheffield, who continues to make big saves, but kudos to the Kings D brass. He hasn't had to make those 10 Beller saves as he has at times throughout the regular season. And what's even more impressive for the Kings about going about their business and winning hockey games is their struggles on the power play. And kudos to Weiwei. Dolphins 0 for 10 on the man advantage in this series, which is shocking to think of because they were in that 24% in the regular season. I know things get tougher, and your goaltender has to be your best penalty killer. Bercier certainly has, but the Kings, yeah, just too much ultimately for Wewe Capo to handle.
Yeah, if you can go up 3-0 in a series while you're 0 for 10 on the power play, you're doing a lot of the other things right, whether it's 5-on-5 or penalty kill. Cody Bueller, from a distance watching in Portage, is this just a matter of the Kings kind of living up to the expectations, or are, because we maybe forget how good this Dolphins roster was because they weren't healthy for a month. So is this a matter of them just living up, and it's not surprising to see them starting to fire on all cylinders here come playoff time?
Yeah, they're getting guys back at the right time when it matters. And we talked about that before with Winkler Flyers. Having a healthy full lineup and the guys who've been contributing all season long is huge. And we talked about it before. And again, as analysts and as guys who talk about all these series beforehand, it's kind of nice sometimes when we talk about things and it seems to be going the direction in the way that we discussed, that the Dauphin Kings are doing kind of what we thought they were going to do. This is the biggest points gap in the MJHL playoffs between two teams. Dauphin finished first. Wewe was on the just barely squeaking in right at the end, coming down to the last final day. And maybe that's a situation where that they had used all their energy to win those last couple games and squeak into the playoffs, and they're kind of just happy to be here. But then once they meet up against the Dauphin Kings with their full lineup, it's kind of a whole nother game and it's a whole nother world. And so I think that's kind of what we're seeing, at least from the outsider's perspective, here through the first three games.
Kevin Paul's Wewe Capo went through a fair amount of change, even early on in the season. Landon Cochran taking over behind the bench. I thought he did a very good job getting his guys to buy in. I think he's going to build a solid program. Local guy, I hope, is there long term. Is getting to the playoffs, even if they don't win a game, is that still a successful season for Wewe Capo? And what is that going to do long term, regardless of how this series plays out?
I think it definitely helps move the needle. It gives the community something to, set their compass to, something they want to get back to. You get a bit of a taste of it, no matter what the point disparity is, because we're talking about the series here that had the biggest points gap from first to fourth. So obviously the Wewe Capo Wolverines are in tough, but as we've seen with other series, anything's possible. You need to make the best of your opportunities, whether it be on the man advantage or scoring chances. Obviously, Cole Sheffield, we've talked about ad nauseum. He's a really good goaltender. So things aren't going to be easy for the Wolverines here. But, any community that gets a chance to stand up and cheer when their home team's going in the playoffs is what everybody signs up for. So that's just great to see.
Darnell, we'll wrap up with this. It's going to be the toughest game tonight. Wewe Capo with their backs up against the wall. Just speak to the importance of Dauphin getting this series done tonight, to get a little healthy, to get some rest, to sit back and watch, because it looks like at least a couple series might be going 6, if not longer than that. So to speak to the importance of Dauphin having that kind of killer instinct tonight and getting through the most desperate the Wewe Capo Wolverines will be this year.
Yeah, and I mean, at the end of the day, you hit it right there on the head. There is no sense in the Dauphin Kings allowing Wewe Capo to plant any seed of doubt. The Kings, of course, still, they can lose 3 games and still have a chance to win this in 7. But as you mentioned, that other series is likely to go long. And the Kings, even some of the guys that have returned, are still banged up. There's nicks, there's bruises, the grind of the playoff journey. You want to get as many days as you can off. So for the Kings, I think it's paramount to find a way to dive in and get number 4 tonight. And regardless of what happens for Wewe Capo, kudos for them getting back to the playoffs for the first time since 2022 with the youngest head coach and general manager. And you look forward to next year for Wewe Capo if their season does end tonight. Their top 8 offensive contributors, a guy who you like, Sebastian Hicks, is back. Aiden Herring, a pretty crafty forward, and Mariko Bercier as well. And now they're going to have that playoff experience under their belt. Regardless of how this series ends, the Wewe Wolverines will be better for it moving forward. For the Kings, you want to take care of business. You've been taking care of business all series long. You're the better team. There's no reason not to get the job done in hostile territory tonight against a Wolverines team that will come out hard.
Gentlemen, the final series we focus in on is one where we've all had to look at from a distance. It's the Northern Manitoba Blizzard and the Nipawa Titans. This one is Well, probably as good as we thought it would be. They've all been close games. Nipoa jumping out to that 1-0 lead. The Blizzard storming back, double overtime win yesterday. Darnell, we'll start with you because you're in the West. You see these teams a fair amount. We knew it was going to be close. We knew it was going to be back and forth. Have you noticed anything that's maybe separated them a little bit? Is it the skill of the Blizzard coming up to the top a little bit? I know they've been inconsistent at times this year, so it's always kind of been there. Is it starting to rise up here at the right time?
I think it's the tenacity and coming up clutch at the right moment. You look at that game winner that was scored late in game number 3 by Quincy Suprian when he stripped a puck up at center ice and went the other way and found the back of the net. And Mason LeBreau was outstanding in game 1. We talked about they've had a two-headed horn between him and Casey Cookett all year long. Cookett came in game 4 and played pretty well. And Mason Hartley's having a great offensive output with 5 points. But I think when you look at this Blizzard team, they're at you. And it's much easier to be at you 100% of the time and relentless when you're playing in a smaller facility as they are right now at the Yellowhead Center. I think Tate Timmerman is starting to settle in a little bit in his first junior hockey run. And then Tyler Doms, a guy who last year had 15 points playing AAA hockey, 24 in the regular season, and he's got 5 points in the playoffs so far. I think this is a pretty well-oiled Northern Manitoba Blizzard machine. They got back Chichu Laughlin on the back end. They've gone through a pretty lengthy playoff run last year when they played 2 game 7s. I thought going into this series, maybe Nipoa, just because they're on an upwards trajectory over the past couple of years, would perhaps have a little bit too much for the Blizzard to handle. I think I was wrong. I'll own up to that, because the Northern Manitoba Blizzard are certainly the superior team. And I could see them finishing this in 5 on Friday night.
Sure, but I think we could all agree we could see this just as likely go the other way. Kevin Pauls, how many times have we counted Nipoa out, whether it's been early in the season, middle of the season, late in the season? It's just never seemed to worry them, regardless of what they're going up against. They believe they can get it done, and they have some big horses that have not really gotten into this series yet. So Nipoa is not out of this by any stretch, and maybe they kind of thrive when everybody thinks that they are done.
Well, obviously we've talked about the goaltending, and at times you need those timely saves. And, between LeBreau and Cookett, they're completely capable of that. And Darnell touched on it as well. You're going to need your depth to come through. And Nipoa is going to bring that lunch pail attitude. They're going to work their tails off throughout the course of a 60-minute hockey game. But it's been the timely contributions of people like, Quincy Cyprian, getting Laughlin back on the back end certainly does help the Blizzard, who I think might have a little bit more on the scoring side of things. This series has a little bit of everything you want. You have the talent, you have the scalpel type approach, and then you have the hammer nail approach that I think the Nipoa Titans have on their side. And I think we have a little more to see from the Titans here. I expect this series to really start to bump when things go back into action tomorrow. I would definitely not count the Nipoa Titans out of this one, but credit to the Blizzard for what they've brought so far.
Cody Bueller, a fascinating thing about this series was Nipoa won on the road, lost both at home. The Blizzard have lost one at home, won both on the road. So it's really hard to say which team kind of is going to feel the best about going back to the Roy H. Johnson. I'm sure the Blizzard are going to be happy. If you've ever had a playoff game there, Darnell, I'm having the ringing of air horns going off in my head right now, just thinking about last year. It's a tough building to play, but Nipoa has been successful there. Just take us through your thoughts. And this, we always say the last game's the hardest to win. Just your overview from a distance between Nipoa and the Northern Manitoba Blizzard.
Well, it doesn't really look like the home ice has been much of an advantage in this series, with the road team winning 3 out of the 4 games so far. Blizzard, the only team that's won a game on home ice. And so when you look at this series, it very well could be 3-1 Nipoa with how close some of these games have been, especially the 2 games in Nipoa. And Darnell mentioned it before. The Nipoa Titans were up 2 goals heading into the 3rd period in game number 3. The Blizzard scored 3 unanswered goals to win the game in Nipoa. If Nipoa could have just hung on, got 1 more save, it very well could be a Nipoa series. And then in game number 4, double overtime. Once you get to double overtime, it's kind of just a lucky bounce, a missed save, a missed play here or there. We've seen that so many times where a series can shift dramatically on one bounce in overtime. And all of a sudden, it looks dramatically different the other way. And so it's been unfortunate for Nipawa. They haven't been able to close out the last 2 games where they've had a chance. But it, again, like we said, it could go the other way. So I think that Nipawa definitely does have a chance going back up north to get this series a little bit closer. It's really tough to come back from 3-1, but I think that with all these games close, I think if they can keep it, if they can be mentally tough and strong, and I think they have a chance to come back.
And I'm a huge proponent of the way that they've done the schedule. I love that they had the first 2 games in the Roy H. I love that they had game 3 and 4 in Nipawa, and now they're going back and forth because it does put more of an attrition on that. You are kind of rewarded as being the team that was better in the regular season, getting those first 2 games at home. And I think, even though Nipawa stole game 1, getting game 2 led the Blizzard to kind of steamrolling through and finding a way and finding that resolve. And now it's going to be up to the Titans to respond to that. So I really like the 2-2-1-1-1 style, and I think all series should be doing that going forward down the road. But they don't pay us for that. They don't really pay us for this either, but we end up talking anyway. Kevin Pauls of the Nighthawks, Cody Bueller of the Terriers, Darnell Duff of the Kings. I'm Dave Anthony with the Steinbach Pistons, Manitoba Junior Hockey League Roundtable, as we catch you up on the playoffs. Thanks for joining.